Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Insights with Experts. Joining us here today, we are very, very fortunate to have Mr. Michael Huskii. Michael, he has done numerous things over his life. He's the founder of Asian Heritage AU. He is also the founder of Valyou Xchange, and he is also on the board of Shoebox Ventures. And those are just some of the many, many things he's currently immersed in as of now. Michael, it's absolutely wonderful to have you here today. How are you?
Good, man. Just it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in Australia. So it's a Sunday. We're on Sunday right now, right? Yeah. So just trying to figure out what's the game plan for today. I've actually got our team's got a photo shoot later today, so I've just kind of been having these conversations with the technology advisors and stuff like that before you actually head out. Melbourne's starting to open up a little bit more from the COVID lockdown, so yeah, man, it's just kind of mesh everything out and see how the day plans.
Awesome. So, Michael, first thing that I wanted to know now, this is a question which we ask everyone that comes on. It's the first question, and it's essentially, what is an overview of your journey? So, from the moment you left school to that moment you are now, I mean, what made you want to go into entrepreneurship? What made you want to start with Valyou X? I mean, all of these things.
Yeah. Like, are you looking for a sentence or a phrase, or like just kind of like just an overview based on, I guess, yeah. Just based on my journey, I'd probably say self-discovery is the journey that one embarks on when they pick the road of risk. Anyone, let it be a creative, a leader, or an entrepreneur, or a risk taker in any fashion, generally will find more of themselves and go through the process of what they're actually capable of. You know what I mean? Just from a place of, like, when I say self-discovery, it's like, I think it's a very, like, it's a word that's very easily to kind of to be made like a buzzword, that understanding, I guess, who you are and what it is that you want to do in comparison to who you are and what you think you should be doing. And yeah, I mean, these questions for the self are always changing, but once you've kind of got everything on grasp and clutch, you kind of figure out, you start to discover yourself from multiple different lenses. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, nice, of course. And I mean, and it sort of seems now. I mean, even though I wouldn't say you're as young as maybe we are, but I also wouldn't say you're as old as some of these CEOs out there in these top firms as well. But I mean, it seems that even where you're at now, you seem to have. I mean, you can say if I'm wrong, but you seem to have found sort of your feet. If I'm not wrong.
Oh, most definitely. You self-embrace. I think I'm technically Generation Y, end of Generation Y, and on cusp of Generation Z. I'm 26 now, and at this point, I would be considered, like, I've probably lived my life in the world of Gen Z more so often, and I've been fortunate in my own journey in developing Valyou X with my business partner, and he being probably around 30, 32 now, I think. You start to realize there's um, different mentalities in different age groups, right? Like, it's very consistent across the generations. But everyone's superpower is the time in which they're born, and the day, um, you know, as probably, like, I'm closer to you than, like, how old are you, Sean?
19 years old as of now.
19 years. So, for me, I'm probably closer to you than I am the age of my business partner. But what I can tell you is I'm in the same feat in which, I'm born in the generation that the phone is hooked to my left hand or my right hand. And I'm interpreting what it is that how, these executives or these, people who've done cool things, how they've done it in their time, and then figuring out how we're doing it in our time.
Right. Yeah, and you talked a lot about like how you're on the cusp of like Gen Z. You're currently in Gen Y. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how we have these generations and so on. And currently we have this Gen Z, and we're born and we're growing in this 21st century age where so many things are
Yeah.
changing. There's so many things on offer. So I wanted to ask you, as somebody who knows a little bit about tech in this kind of space, what are
Mm.
perhaps some of the tools, some of the pieces of tech? Is it social media, XYZ, these kinds of things that the youth should be trying to leverage now?
Yeah, I mean, what's good? Everyone is given the same tools. Ever since the phones came, went from what's good. I started my era would have held the Nokia phone where you could switch the covers. Then the BlackBerry came through, and now ultimately the iPhone's kinged it. We all have iPhones. We all treat it like we do, like sending messages, getting on calls and all these things. But I think it's the lens in which you look at what's available to you. We're in the world like before the iPhone. I think knowledge is scarce. Knowledge is like, oh, you have to know the experts and everything. The internet provides this like quick link for you to find anything and everything. And I'll be honest, Generation Z has more answers and has more power than they think. When I say this, I mean they have the ability to basically digest information very quickly. Information on recall from anything. Like at this point, it's not the magic is not learning and bleeding into being an expert. It's learning. Okay, I've got a problem now. I need to fix it. What do I have to read? What do I have to take a look at? Who do I have to talk to figure out what the answer is to that particular problem? Let it be in work, let it be in home, let it be in anywhere. Do you get me? The tools that I could probably recommend for a person who's wanting to be like whether it be in a creative, a leader, or an entrepreneur, or a risk taker, which are just by the Asian Heritage AU I guess logo and what we're about. We empower creatives, entrepreneurs, leaders, and risk takers, and we live in the world of the digital experience. Everyone knows social media. Everyone knows Facebook, Instagram exists, and everyone knows what these are utilized for. But to utilize them in a more objective reality, to be able to get your identity out there, your idea, or what you're about out there, you've kind of got to study the platform, not from a place of reading everything online, but actually going, okay, I'm wanting to post this and I want it to interact with A, B, C, and D people. Why am I doing this? Who am I tagging? Who am I, who do I actually need to have a conversation with? Do you know what I'm saying? The other side of everything, like building websites, building platforms, building these entities or these tools, right, is a mixture of utilizing like no code platforms like Wix, Squarespace. All of these things are web builders that I think WordPress, all of these things have been things that have been around for a while now. And you want a website, the reality is just learning about the nitty gritty. You want to learn about the analytics side, you learn what the softwares are around there, and it's just a matter of figuring out what is it that you like. Before you get into all of that stuff, the reality is kind of figuring out what is it that it's your lane. What lane are you chasing? Who do you have to talk to, and in comparison to what you're comfortable with right now. You know what I'm saying? Like Sham, like yourself, you've gone through the journey of creating Desir, and you've had to figure out, all right, cool. There's a website here. There's now, if I'm going to build something else, it has to be a cascade of who do I need to talk to that's not within my region of expertise. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And you specifically talked about like social media as a whole, and I think it's safe to say that with social media, it's a lot more interconnected, interdependent world that we have. You could be anywhere in the world, but you could be connected with someone else, and that leads on very nicely onto this next question, which I'd like to ask you. That's with the Asian. That's with your role at the Asian Heritage in Australia. Now, I wanted to know here. So, what made you want to actually take on a role in this? What made you want to take this to where it is as of now? And what about the culture space perhaps stands out to you? And why do you think maybe students all around the world can actually gain from having themselves involved in maybe similar initiatives like this?
Sure. I think it's probably the easiest way to explain it to you from a place of like, I guess, starting Asian Heritage AU. How it came to start was I was responsible for curating music acts for an 8-hour online conference based in the States, and the consensus of the conference was for the basis of Asian Heritage Month in the States, really. And being an Australian operator, I was responsible for curating the music acts. So I was responsible for the music segments, just from having relationships in the music industry, as well as just those who are performers. And then basically, I kind of being a part of this process, I was kind of like, Asian Heritage Month is a thing in the States, but why is it not a thing in Australia? Do you know what I'm saying? So then I started Googling and Wikipediaing like what is Asian Heritage Month? And the reality is it's just a time in which I guess American policy writers or like somebody important in America has gone, this is when they came over and this is how the Asian communities have developed, da 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 da. So for me, my technology advisors over there, they were kind of saying, look, Michael, you could probably be the catalyst for Asian Heritage Month in Australia. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I don't know how much I'm proud about being, you know, like Asian heritage and everything. Like I'm West world born in, I'm Asian born in the Western world. Like, you know, when I think about like what's happening, I guess my own, you know, cultural history, Vietnam, I kind of try and distance my way from it, just from a place of going, that's not my war. That's not my time. I didn't go through that, so I'm not going to pretend like, you know, I have a stance on that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm in the time of now in which I've been fortunate to walk the world of, you know, the tech startup world, pitching and traveling to different parts of the world. Like with Valyou X, we went from being a Melbourne tech startup, just pitching to the local areas, to traveling to Dubai, France, Sweden, Russia, and China. We'd won Alibaba startup competition, and all these things just cascaded and going, wow, like for you to have an idea, just to put it on your chest, run out there and tell the world. There's a lot of things that one has to override from a place of confidence and, you know, really being assertive. And then just knowing that, you know, my own journey has been one in which, you know, being brought up within an Asian family household, you know, we're very like, we're just, you know, we're afraid of being in trouble. We're afraid of, you know, just being, just pissing off our parents straight up. You know what I mean? And from a very clear, no bullshit way, it's like you have to hit a point in which you go, you know what, I love my parents, but I got to do this for me, because I need to be able to take the risk, because there are things that I'm a fan of and that I have interests in that are not within their interests. And for them, they've grown up in a time in which how money was made was completely different to how money is made now, right? So, you know, collectively pulling together my involvement in the 8 hour conference that was headlined by it was the co-founder of LinkedIn and the CEO of Rotten Tomatoes, Patrick Lee. That was the headline of that 8 hour conference. I, you know, then contrasting over to Asian Heritage Month in Australia, how come that's not a thing? And then my own experience and how I developed the confidence and the just the, you know, just the tenacity now. It's just a matter of going, what do I want now? Let's make that happen. And how do we go about doing that? If I don't know, find somebody who does. To then bring together Asian Heritage AU. And when I came up with Asian Heritage AU, just from a context of the name, there was Asian Heritage Month, and I could have made it Asian Heritage Month Australia, right? But what I decided was, oh, why don't we call the organization Asian Heritage Australia? Then I shortened it a bit more, Asian Heritage AU. And it was A with a letter U. And then I was like, that sounds very official and like, you know, generation boomer, right? So I went, let's go one step further. Asian Heritage AY, like A, and then U with YOU, like AU, right? Because reality is we're entering the world of casualties. If I'm not gonna, you know, if I'm not gonna hang out with you on a personal level or be able to go, hey, you know, to you in Asian cultures, just to reach out to talk to each other, you know, without the formalities, then I'm probably not going to want to work with you or do anything with you, because that's just the way the world we're going. You know what I mean? So Asian Heritage AU, you know, then reflecting on my own personal experience, I wanted to create that portal and that excuse for for Australians to celebrate Asian Heritage Month in Australia, but also for them to walk into a portal where they can actually develop themselves as creatives, entrepreneurs, leaders, and risk takers. Because reality, let's go like this: our parents, the biggest risk takers. Let's be real. These guys jumped boats. These guys ducked bombs and boats just to get onto new land. But and so for them, they're very like, oh, I know what risk taking is like, but here's the road of security that I want you to pursue. Every Asian kid that's born in the Western world will understand this. Even not even in the Western world, in the Eastern world, right? They all understand this concept of reach for security. When the world that we're coming into, security is an idea. You know what I mean? It's a perception. It's sold. But you know, this being the case, Asian Heritage AU, why we stand to empower creatives, entrepreneurs, leaders, and risk takers, is ultimately to show that there are ways to go about this, and you can do it in a way in which allows people to be unified in your mission. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's really what we're about. And I know you asked me like how you came up with it, why it started, but realistically, that's the cascade of events that have led me to doing what we're doing now.
Yeah, of course. And that one line that you said, how, when our parents talk to us in terms of how they made money then, in terms of how you make money now, two completely separate things. It's changed over those years. The world's first music stock market well, when I first heard about that, and when you first told me about that, I thought, wow, that is something new, right? Like, can you
Mm,
just tell us, like, where did that idea come from? And
yeah,
maybe I mean, some of our viewers may not even know how a regular stock market works. Could you also maybe explain how a music artist stock market works as well?
for sure. So with Valyou X, the world's first music artist stock market, my business partner is a rapper, and I literally met him on the road of Lonsdale Street here in Melbourne. I was at university at the time, and after uni, after work, I would literally go to a bunch of meetups. I came across a meetup that was around Bitcoin and the blockchain space, and I walked into this place. I'm like, people are creating all these different currencies for different projects and different platforms. I'm like, this is what the adults are doing after work. Like, okay, all right, cool. You kind of sink in because you're at university, so you're trying to look into any place that will get you your next gig or your next job, right? You walk into it and you're like, oh, okay, so there's a lot of these cryptocurrency exchanges. So exchanges, just for a context for those who don't know, um, you know, things around, trading or buying shares. A stock market in any country is basically a portal in which people go, I have money. Now I want to invest it into random companies or certain companies that I research up and can see that them succeeding in future. So that way I can put that money towards a company, have the company leverage that money to ultimately, as it develops, the price of my money will go up or go down based on the progress of the organization. So when we came across the cryptocurrency space, I told my business partner, and our business partner with Valyou X, hey man, bro, they're all creating like cryptocurrency exchanges here. Why don't we create an exchange for the music industry? It just made natural sense because people were creating cryptocurrency exchanges. Why don't we create the stock market for the music industry, where the music artists are ultimately these small companies that people could put their money in to invest, and then when they blow up, that money would naturally blow up, right? Because everyone goes to live gigs and live events to support their artists, but no one's ever looked at these artists as actual startups, as small organizations that actually have a proven business model before any startup has ever started, right? The only difference between music artists being a proven business model is that it's always been something gate kept and hidden. Like, oh, a record label will support them, and then da da da. Do you know what I'm saying? So this began the journey of a rapper and a uni student who's now a uni dropout, um, and putting on the t-shirt of Valyou X, going out there, learning how to build a website, learning how to learning about the different partners in the space of the financial infrastructures, and learning more about the music industry and the different people that are involved in the life cycle of an artist and the life cycle of a record label. So, you know, what Valyou X is, they're endeavoring. My business partner now spearheads at number one. I've taken us. I used to be the number two, so now I've taken a seat back as an advisor to focus on Asian Heritage AU. But the last 4 years of my life, just walking into the world of startups and starting to see how this all works. The reality is, for you to create this platform requires the reality of a financial services license, i.e., you need to be a bank. So, if you're a bank, you have the license to basically, say, yep, I'll take money in on behalf of this artist. And now that artist will either succeed or fail, but you have to make sure that the investor gets their money back in a way in which is not misleading. Does that make sense? So that's what the world's first music artist stock market is. And that venture is still going. And, for me, it's provided me a great opportunity to develop relationships with people across the tech space. And yeah, I can only tell you that I look forward to when it succeeds.
Yeah, I wanted to keep talking about music actually, and maybe shift our conversation over there as well. Um, so with music,
Yep.
what would you say are the ways that students can get involved in music outside of these massive formal institutions like school, universities, these music institutions? How can students get immersed into that world outside of it? And is it ever too late for anyone to just get involved in it?
I think when it comes to the concept of too late, um, you know, you've got to look at it from like any particular league. If you want to be a professional tennis player at 32 and everyone has been training since they're 18, that's probably the concept in which, you know, your body and your life can actually, how long are you going to work afterwards to actually, you know, be recognized by the leagues, you know. But in saying so, never too late is an idea, but how long you persist at something and whether people recognize you for it, that's a different story. There's so many variants outside of outliers that the reality is, for you to say that's concrete, it's bullshit. You know what I mean? um more realistically, for the music industry, anyone who's wanting to be some form of creative, some form of like artist, let it be a producer or a singer songwriter, I would recommend, instead of like, you know, going to, you know, any of these institutions and signing up for classes, really think about what is it that gives you that sense of oomph, if that, whether you got that degree or you didn't. Because, you know, to get a formal qualification on a very subjective industry, right? When I say subjective, I mean, if your sound works, it works. If the generations, if your track or what your songs are about are hitting a demographic in which is accepted in the now, in comparison to a demographic maybe a young long ago, it's about catching waves and movements. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So the thing is, you can, you know, express your creativity and express your art. Learn the tools to be able to do that. As a producer, you need the digital audio, you know, workstation. You know, you need the DAW. You need all these things so that way you can create the actual body of work, right? But then the other side is building relationships. I would say start looking up websites that these music companies that you've met before, go hunt their names down onto LinkedIn, find who you need to talk to, say, hey, look, I will buy you lunch. I will, you know what I mean? I will buy you your coffee. I just want to ask you a few questions. From a very real place, I'm just trying to figure out what that means. And don't come in saying, I just want to get my foot in the door, because everyone wants to get their foot in the door. Just literally ask them from a place of, who are you? Why do you do your job at here? And literally what how can I help you? Like, I'm a free agent right now. I just finished uni, I finished school. I'm that person. Like, I'm free to do anything and everything. And the reality is, I don't need your approval to get my foot in the door. I need to understand where your mind is at for that role that you're in. Because the reality is, I don't even know if I want to work for you yet. Do you know what I'm saying? So to get your foot in the door, it's like, a foot in the door is like a chance, right? And the reality is, people don't realize that they can make their chances. If you're a music artist or you're in the industry or you work in it, you think you need to know all these people. But the reality is, when you've done enough work, they'll want to know you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So
And
when anyone's
when
about,
you like reach out to people as well, I mean, I
mm,
think what many students are afraid of is that they would say, "Oh no, no, I'm sorry, I'd have the time, all that kind of stuff." At the end of the day, what's the worst thing that could happen? No, sorry, we can't. I don't have the time. Okay, cool. I would argue, cool. Move on. Find that next person. Find that next thing you would like to work on. I don't know. Is that right? I mean, is that something that you would see as well?
yeah, I mean, look, there's more people than you think that operate in the world of these different industries. You have to think about, like, music is one thing, technology is one thing, retail is one thing, or just all these different things that, you know, that are particularly industries, right? Just because one person says no, there will be another person that says yes. And I'll tell you that, you know, you have to suck up a lot of no's. You have to eat this shit for a while before you actually get, yeah, come in. Because you've got to be that persistent. The reality is, would you be doing what you're doing without the money? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, can you, like, without the fame, without the recognition, would you still be doing it? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, like, you're having this conversation with a person that works there day in, day out, and you want to be a rising pop star. You know what? Your job is just be their friend. Just be like, hey, look, my name is Michael. I'm trying to get my foot into A, B, C, and D. Just so you know that's where you can help me. I also want to know how I can help you as a person that's working here, because you're busy doing your job, but there are things that I can help you with outside of your job that might mean a relationship with somebody else. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that there is where students of the next generation have to realize that if they're gonna say no, get ready for the no and get ready for the next guy to say yes. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because just like the same way, you know, we hit each other up on Instagram, like each other's shit, send each other's messages and hope that they respond or not. you just move on. I mean, just move on. Let's charge it to the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Michael, so I'd just like to finish off this interview with one question. And it's the exact same question that we ask literally every expert that comes on here. What that question is, if you could leave the youth with just one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice actually be?
Look into what you're YouTubing. Look into what you're Googling. Figure out if what you like and what empowers you lives in any of the stuff that you've looked into on YouTube or Google. Look at any of those things and try and see if that's something that you actually want to be in. Because most likely you've been calloused by your own educational requirements. But whatever it is that you're Googling or YouTubing, most likely your passion lives there. And you'll find it. It's just a matter of trusting your gut. And the best thing is, instead of analysis paralysis, just keep doing things until one thing says no. And you have to keep failing and taking the wrong steps before you hit the right step. And the worst thing is analysis paralysis. If you get stuck, trust me, you'll be stuck for a while. Just do one thing and just say yes to everything until you find out what it is that you're about. That's it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Insights with Experts. We'd now like to introduce a platform that we think would be useful for all of our viewers. Teachers on Wheels is an Australian charity that helps people from all walks of life achieve their career goals. They provide free career guidance and support services to young people in Australia and all over the world, including weekly career webinars with professionals from a diverse range of industries, a resume review service, and a mentoring program in collaboration with Westpac.
Thanks for listening in. This podcast has been brought to you by Desare, a platform designed to bridge the gap between the youth and professionals. You can read more about us at desare.org, and you can also check out the section titled Insights with Experts, where you can submit your questions that you might have for future experts and industries that you would like to learn more about. And you can also refer in any experts that you might know yourself.